Ms. Shroff to give the welcome address. Shri Palam Rajuji, a guest of honor, Shri Ashok Chandraji, Dr. Metcalf, Sunil, participants, Mr. Jain, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th Calorx MJ Pherwani Conference on Dyslexia and Specific Learning Differences. I'm especially thrilled. We've been doing conferences of this kind for several years now. The whole thought behind such conferences is to create sensitivity awareness and make practitioners like you in education understand the real need and the role that we have to play inside the classroom. So this is our first conference that is national, international in stature, and we're extremely thrilled with the kind of response we received. I guess the response is a direct result of the times that we currently live in. You all know that the top-down approach from the Ministry of Education, MHRD, has been very, very, very straightforward, clear about the role that specific learning needs plays in the classroom. That cannot be said of the ground reality, and you and me know the ground reality. The National Curriculum Framework, way back in 2005, laid down the clear guidelines, laid down the clear context, and what we should do inside the classroom. But really, in all of these years, today the momentum is gaining. It's becoming more of a buzzword. Inclusion is being spoken in the right education corridors. Way back in India, historically in India, special schools were created as long as 1880. And even 20 years later, we're doing conferences to create awareness. Simply put, this whole theory of inclusion, simply put, says just one thing, that every child, all children, have the right to proper education in a mainstream classroom. That's the underlying message of any special needs program. Like I've always mentioned, in India, the directives top-down has been very, very consistent. So whether you look at the RCI Act, which is the Rehabilitation Council Act, you look at the National Trust for Multiple Disability Act, you look at the SSA, the Service Shiksha Abhiyan, and finally the RTE, which is made mandatory as special learning needs inside the mainstream. But when you look at the ground reality, it's very slow. The way we look at it, special children are supposed to be excluded. They're supposed to go and get education intervention someplace else. Now that was the historical perspective. And then there was this huge movement to include them. So what progressive schools, some of us have done, is created resource centers. So these children come into these learning resource centers, but not into mainstream. The final talk is really about integrating into the mainstream all children. And this really is based on a global recognition of the fact that special children learn the best alongside the non-disabled children, whether it's in a school environment or a higher education environment. So let's look at what is really needed in order to bring in inclusion. Let's look at two aspects, the hardware aspect and the software aspect. Schools really have to ready themselves. So let's start right from transportation. We don't have access. We don't have ramp. We don't have wheelchair access to bus transports. We do not have wheelchair access to toilets. Basic amenities we do not have access. Look at our learning tools. We're just so completely textual. We don't have audio learning. We don't have braille learning. Look at sometimes children have acute disabilities and they need specific help. Our schools do not permit an adult to accompany children. And our education assessment system is so logical and mathematical, these children simply cannot cope up. So all of these readinesses on our hardware aspect schools have to have. On the software, which is really you and me, one single teacher with the right framework of mind can make a huge impact in the classroom, and you know that. Sometimes without any formal learning or understanding strategies, if the teacher has the appetite to learn, to help children in a diverse environment, to help different learning styles, to help different learning paces, she can get help from colleagues, she can get help from medical practitioners and make a difference. But that really is not the case. We're just so completely caught up, racing to do marks, racing to do syllabi, that this whole aspect remains neglected inside the mainstream classroom. We at Prerna, which is about a decade old now, the Calorx Foundation started Prerna about in 2001, have consistently worked towards creating awareness such that the right teacher can make the difference. Because you know that statistically, I think if you look at all kinds of disabilities, almost 30% of children will need these kind of interventions. We've had regional workshops in Bangalore, Calcutta, of course Delhi, Ahmedabad all the time. And we've seen that during these interactions, you go home with a lot of capacity. During these deliberations, you have tools, you have strategies that you can actually do in classroom. I'd like to place my gratitude to a whole lot of people without whom this would not have been possible. The MJ Firwani, represented by Sunil here. The Honorable Minister who, I'm sorry, I know we are all Ahmedabadis. We just first thank the sponsor and then the dignitary. That just runs in the blood. So I should have actually said the Honorable Minister, I thank you, but I'm saying I thank my sponsor first. So all the sponsors out there, without whom we could not have made this, thank you so much. The Honorable Minister was very, very kind. You know, I know this is not his topic. He's going to have to read up and then talk to us, but he's taken the time out. You know, they say that when people are very busy, they're the only people that can find time. So I'm sure he's one of those people. I've never get a chance to interact with him. I know him from a common friend, but it took us all of 3 phone calls and 2 emails, and he's here. And that shows, and that's very encouraging, because if leaders, political leaders who run the country have an understanding to needs like this, a whole lot of stuff just gets done in the right place. Mr. Ashok Chandra is a very, very old collaborative partner with Calorx. All of this work that we are doing in Prerna is housed inside the Delhi Public School in Ahmedabad. And Mr. Chandra has been very, very appreciative of the work that we've done. He's helped us hold a lot of conferences. The teachers of DPS, they like it or not, they just have to attend all of these conferences. So he's really been a very, very strong supporter for the cause of dyslexia. And he's never lost an opportunity to tell us what great work we are doing. So thank you so much for being here, both of you. West Georgia University, we also run a university for teachers training, and we have an MOU with West Georgia. And as a part of the MOU, we do faculty exchange programs, and one of our senior faculty was over at University of, you say UWG? UWG? Yes. So, go! All right. So, he's the Dean of the College of Education there, and we also have other delegates that are going to be speaking to you in these 2 days. And I have to thank you for coming here. They're here especially for this. And I have no doubt that all of the deliberations in the next 2 days is going to make you a more rounded, holistic teacher. The time is definitely right. The time is upon us. It's our collective responsibility to take all of those policies the government has rightly placed in white paper into strategies that are live for the children out there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.